Hey, body yaddies. Welcome to the very first episode of the newly recharged Mind Body Balance podcast. I'm your host, Valerie, your self care sister, guide, and hype woman, all rolled into one. If you're new here, hey, come in, get comfy. You're a part of the family now. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, again, thank you for coming back. Your listenership is greatly appreciated. I always say if there are no listeners, there is no podcast, right? So, we're starting fresh. We're I I would say we're going deeper, but I'm going to leave that up to you. You decide how deep you want to go in this self-care reset that we're about to do. Um this podcast is just that about this podcast episode, I'm sorry, is just all about one thing, and that's the self-care reset, but it's not the kind that you think. Let's be honest. Sometimes we drift, we get caught in doing everything for everyone else, our calendars fill up, our energy drains, and before you know it, we feel out of alignment. And that's how I felt in January. I decided that I was going to do a social media detox because I think at that time I felt that is what was draining me of my energy, right? I found myself like comparing my posts to other people's posts, constantly looking to see how many likes I had. It was too much. And so I said, I'm going to do a social media detox. So what did I do when I was not on social media? I developed a routine of prayer, making sure I get up in the morning and giving God reverence before I start my day. I would say little prayers throughout the day, or just, kind of focus on one scripture and, just kind of learning and focus on it throughout the day. And then in the evening, um, I would study the word. I would open up my Bible and read and just sit and meditate on what it was that I read. What did it mean to me? How do I fit that into my life? And sometimes I would come up with my own prayers just off of the scripture. So I'm not trying to throw or shove my Christian beliefs or thoughts down anyone's throats. I'm just telling you what I did. I sat, I was still a lot of times, and just, kind of process whatever thoughts I was having, uh, trying to find out where the drainage was coming from, and just come up with a plan on what I was going to do. How was I going to handle it, right? And that's where the self care reset comes in. It's not just about bubble baths, face masks, manicure, pedicures. It's even though we love those things, that's not the self care reset I'm talking about. I'm talking about checking in with you. YOU. It's about pausing long enough to ask yourself, how am I really doing? You know, what do I need more of? What do I need to let go of? This reset is about coming back to center, not for anyone else, but for you. Not for anyone else, but for you. I think that's where another place where we kind of fall off because we're so busy taking care of other people. Our cup is empty and we're still trying to pour. And that can cause your energy to be drained just from that, right? Um, Real self care begins from the inside out. Before we change our routines, we've got to, take time and make sure our minds and our hearts are where they need to be. So I want you to ask yourself, what emotions have I been carrying? It's okay if they come up. You can acknowledge that they're there. You don't have to entertain it. You just, recognize they're there. Which ones are there? What stories have I been telling myself? You know, are you being delulu about a situation? And when I say delulu, I mean delusional for those who, don't know what delulu is because some of us are, and we're just really ignoring the fact that we are. Um, Ask yourself, am I being honest about what's working and what's not? We want something to work, but we're ignoring the fact that it's just not going to work. Yeah, that can drain you, you know, especially if it's something really strong or something really big that you're trying to make work and it's not working. I used to think self care was like, checking off a to do list of healthy habits, right? Writing down all these things I could do to practice self care. Let's check those off. But when I finally sat down with myself in stillness, I realized I was still avoiding the hard stuff, right? Sure, I can go and hop into my reading nook and read, but am I really addressing the other things, the hard things, those things deep down inside? So, you know, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is sit with your truths, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncomfortable. I think sometimes we don't want to be in that uncomfortable. Who does? Who wants to be uncomfortable? However, you have to go through something to get somewhere, right? And you have to take risk. Also, some good risk though, some good risk. So if you are someone who's, asking yourself this and you don't have the answer, this might be for you. Or you may be that person feeling all of this right now, and that's okay. I see you. I do. And I want you to know it's okay to reset. It's okay to begin again. Um, you don't have to change anything, but you might want to add something to what you're already doing, right? So let me give you just some simple things that you can do throughout your day, throughout your week. Whenever you are sitting in that stillness, you can journal through this. You can reflect silently, or you can voice note your answers. Whatever feels natural. And this may be something that you may have to do every day until you you feel like yourself again, or every other day. I journal daily. Some people journal once a week, but I want you to do these things. I want you to do an emotional check, an emotional check in. How am I feeling today? How am I really feeling today? And then I want you to do an energy audit. What's been draining me? What's been filling me up? And that's important because you want to get rid of the stuff that's draining you, but you do want to fill up on, participate, be around, receive things that are going to fill you up. Do a mindset scan. What negative thoughts keep replaying? Acknowledge them and let them go. What thoughts do I want to invite in? That's I think that's where the deepness is going to come into play. What thoughts do I want to invite in? And then do a needs check. What do I need this week? Is it mentally? Is it physically? Is it emotionally? And then do a self love action. And that is just, what small thing can I do for myself today? Because it may be small to you until you do it, or until you receive it, or until you take that action, for you to realize it's actually not as small as I thought it was. This is something big. And It's important to me. It makes me feel good. And I'm glad I did it for me. If any of those sit home, do me a favor, pause this episode right now and just give yourself 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes to just, it could be just simple inhales and exhales because sometimes that's all it takes. That's all we're needing is that one big inhale through the nose and then a strong exhale out of the mouth. And you could sigh when you exhale, you could growl when you exhale, just make sure you exhale that negative energy, right? But take 5 to 10 minutes for yourself. Um, Remember, isn't just another podcast episode. This is your invitation to realign with you. And you know what? You don't need a new planner. You don't need a new routine because you can just add these new things to the routine that you already have. You don't have to create this whole new version of yourself to start caring for you. Do it where you're at. That's where it's going to be that's why it's important that you do it where you're at. You just need a moment of truth and you need the courage to say, I deserve better. So today I'm going to send you, this may be the middle of your week, this may be the beginning of your week, whichever it is, I want you to say this affirmation to yourself. You can write it down, post it, put it on a sticky note, but say this affirmation. And remember, with affirmations, you need to say them at least 7 to 10 times because you want to make sure you mean it, you want to make sure you understand it, and you want to make sure that you feel it. So the affirmation is I honor where I am and I give myself permission to begin again. I honor where I am and I give myself permission to begin again. So if you love today's episode, go ahead and share it with someone who needs a little reminder to reset and start from within. And I'm sure there's a lot of us women out there that needs to uh, have this reset. And there's no limit on how many resets you need. Um, do it hashtag mind body balance podcast reset or hashtag self care reset. I'd love to know what resonated with you. So until next time, take care of your mind, honor your body, and protect your peace. Keep glowing and growing. Your best self is just a breath away. And remember, hop into your happy space, spend as much time as you can there. And until then, I'll see you guys later. Okay, bye.